You want to talk about making a grand entrance into a sport or to see how it's going to work, and people are wondering what the reaction is going to be. Look no further than opening weekend of the Major League Baseball season, where the ABS system was put to the test early and often, and we saw all the types of emotions through this whole thing. So we're going to walk through this a little bit because, the emphasis on the ABS, you're going to get 2 challenges. If you get them right, you get to keep that challenge, so on and so forth. But the biggest part here is, in big moments, you get the call right. And you want to see then, by getting the call right, is it take a long time? How did the fans feel? Well, I think we got that answer pretty quickly. Let's start with the first moment of this weekend, was actually Suarez, CB Buckner.
Right there.
Heck of a take.
Yeah.
But one thing you're going to see here, 0.3 off. You're going to see here that it is a hard thing to have this as a umpire, by the way. Like, it's going to be close. We're going to show that. But the biggest thing is CB Buckner then on the next pitch also called a strike 3.
Yeah.
And what Suarez do? We did a little tap. Is that video with it though?
I don't know why it's not with it.
We're good. But so he did his tap, right? On the second one. And this is where the human element comes into play, is that this one was really close. The second one by CB Buckner was not.
Yeah.
And they challenged it. The Reds crowd erupted when the call got overturned, but a great moment. Here's Randy Arozarena out there with the Mariners. And I think this is a different level of swag if we're going to talk about this. Yeah. Randy gets rung up and he goes, no.
He was so sure of himself.
I'm walking to first because that's a ball.
Yeah.
And talk about having the stones to know the strike zone. But look how close that is.
Yeah.
Also, like, that I had a lot of swagger. I got to give it to Randy there. You're walking to the first base on a pitch that's 0.2. But ABS, besides how close it was, if you're in Baltimore and you saw the Orioles play the Twins, you saw how much of an impact that this had on this specific game. I think of all the games of the weekend, this had the most impact on the Orioles winning and the Twins losing. Because if we go to this real quickly, there were 10 calls, I believe, on the game. 7 of them were overturned. And when you look at this, some of them, they're barely overturned.
Yeah.
And it started with Sam Basayo calling for one early on, which was a ball that was transferred to a strike. We can go to that one real quickly. Look at that.
That is absolutely insane.
And this is why, for an umpires, by the way, this is not about the umpires being wrong, right? Like, no. That is so damn hard because it's where the ball comes in, and we're talking about a fraction, but the point of the system is it gives a player and a team a chance to go by what the metrics are for the strike zone to get the call right.
Well, and I think also there's been some arguments here since the ABS system over the weekend has been implemented. People talking about there being like margin for error, or maybe a certain section of the ball needs to be in the strike zone. Maybe it's a third of the ball needs to be in the strike zone. I'm 100% against that. Maybe it's not a popular opinion, but like, if the ball is touching the strike zone, it's a strike, period. And that's the easiest cut and dry way to do it. You start talking about fractions of the ball being in the zone, having to be in the zone. It gets way too messy. Then this ABS system starts to be a hindrance on the game rather than making the game better, in my opinion. Just keep it simple. It's in the strike zone or it's not. Done.
Also, I'll say this. I think part of also with the ABS system, like, we want to see batters swing the bat.
Yeah.
Like, that's part of it. If it's close, swing the bat. Now, if it touches any part of the strike zone, it's a strike. So if it's close and you don't have any challenges left, or, hey, they might call that, then it gets challenged, and that tiniest, the one stitch touches the strike zone, it's a strike. So how do you get away from that? Swing the bat.
And there's going to be moments here throughout the rest of the video that you'll see, because at the end of the day, you want to try to get the call right, but there's strategy involved with this. You better be right with your challenges, or it could come back to haunt you, because umpires are human. and they're going to maybe miss a ball that's a ball or a strike. So in this case, it's in favor of the Orioles. But later on in the game, there was a situation for the Twins where Wallner was up to the plate, and he strikes out right there, and he challenges, and that ball is pretty damn in the zone, but he challenges. What's the importance of that? That is the Twins' last challenge of the game.
Yep.
And this ball is
very much a strike.
That's what we call getting the meat of the zone right there. That's like, that's like Arby's. We have the meats.
Yeah.
That's the meat of the zone right there.
Right.
But here's the biggest thing. The Twins, that was their last challenge. And it's even more important because Gunnar Henderson comes to bat later on. That should have been strike 2, and instead it's a walk, but the Twins can't challenge it.
Right.
And what happens right there? The Orioles, they are able to get the rally going. It leads to runs, and they don't look back from there. And again, that seems like it's more in the zone. It's a missed call by the umpire, but no challenge. And the Twins, because they used it up on a bad challenge, it cost them, because here's Polar Bear Pete. He's going to stick it out there. Ball's close. It might not be too close.
That's one close
enough for him.
Close enough to put it in play.
Yeah.
And the Orioles, this was the moment of the game then where everything fully changed. But this is where then it gets fun. For the Orioles right now, this is the final pitch where Ryan Helsley then taps. But I want to explain before we get into this. This is the one that gets all of the headlines because of the reaction after from Derek Sheldon, which was a misunderstanding.
Yep.
But the bigger part is that was a 3-0 count to Josh Bell to start that at bat. Yep. It was ball 4 and Adley Rutschman challenged to make it 3-1. And then we'll pull up that right there because it gets the 3-2. And Ryan Helsley then throws that pitch on the border. He taps his head, where that was the part where Ryan tapped it initially coming off the mound and they all missed it. So he tapped again. And that's why Derek Sheldon was all pissed, saying it seemed like it was a delay.
Yeah.
Because Adley, if you looked at him, he just let it go.
He's like, damn.
I don't care if it's by a fingernail that it's a strike.
There's an old ball guy there.
That is a huge head by one of the fans. And he was very interested in this whole thing. And there's Derek Sheldon. He's mad about, he thought it was too long, but even after the fact, he's like, I just didn't see it. All good.
Yeah.
But that moment right there was the biggest difference between the Orioles winning and losing the ball game. And Zach, we have one more graphic, I think, that describes the situation for the Orioles. And this was Tap the Challenge on X, so shout out to them for this. The Orioles, when you look at that, 5 for 6 on challenges. That was a +2 run advantage for them and gave them a plus 33% chance to win this game.
Yeah.
The Orioles win by 2. Ryan Helsley gets his second save. So when we're talking about impact of the game, guys, the fans, they love the action, but more importantly, the calls were right on the field. And Baltimore guessed right or challenged right. The big reason why they won. But I don't know about with you guys. I mean, I know there's some people that say, I don't want to take it away from the game. I don't think it took away anything. I thought it enhanced the product.
I will say this. ABS is exposing a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, I'm not even talking about umpires. Did you know that Major League Baseball, because now they had to measure everyone officially for height and it had to be exact, Major League Baseball, I believe, lost over 17 feet of players' heights. So guys were going from 6'1" to 5'10". And there are a few bad ones, like Gavin Lux, 6'1", all of a sudden listed at 5'10". That was a tough one.
Yeah.
There were some people lying on the height that now, I guess Todd Heap and Dennis wishes that was around back in the day. And then it's also exposing some umpires. But here's the thing. If the goal, which it should be, is to get the call right, that's the whole point. And like we said, some of these misses by the umpires, I mean, that one for Helsley, is anyone going to be upset if that's called a ball? No. I mean, the umpire, it's outside. But Helsley, definition of clipping the edge. It's overturned to a strike. Am I looking at that and going, God, this ump behind the plate is how did he not see the seam snap?
Right.
But get the call right.
But
there are
there
going to be some egregious ones.
Well, so was it Salvador Perez was like 3 for 3.
Yeah.
3 in a row. And so like I think that like it's definitely interesting for me because of just how well the players also know the strike zone.
Yeah.
Not just like to the half an inch, apparently so.
Although I
but
guess
Salvador Perez was like on it.
I guess we're also finding out a little bit that hitters aren't that great. Hitters don't have the best rap sheet so far for challenging pitches.
Yeah.
I know only 4 pitchers have challenged, but so far it seems like there's definitely catchers are showing off the noggin,
which makes sense, right? Because I mean they're right there.
Yeah.
So right now, this was of 17 hours ago, and I think Danny Wexelman had the tweet out of this, and I think Codify put some other numbers out. But this was per MLB Network, the ABS Challenge results through Saturday. This was not updated, but through Saturday, catchers were by far the highest percentage of ones right because they're right behind the dish. Batters, as a hitter, we want it to be a strike or a ball all the time. But you sometimes can get caught up. And I think the part here is, to your point, Zach, earlier, it might have hitters be more inclined to not take that close pitch because the definition has changed just a hair. And the umpire, you can't live by the fact that umpire might give an inch or two off the dish. But guess what? The team's got a challenge left. Are you sure you're that comfortable with that pitch being called a ball? I wouldn't be.